probably the best thing about the hi-fi hobby is its vast diversity. I mean, there are as many different ways to listen to music as there is different music to listen to. And that means no one gets to dictate to us what we should listen to, or worse, what we should enjoy. Looking at the modern hi-fi amplifier market, it's been very surprising to see lots more manufacturers buying in Class D modules and then playing with them to make them sound unique. I mean, we've seen manufacturers do this I never expected to, such as Name and now Marantz and more. And I'm sure if these are successful, more manufacturers will do this because that's often how an industry seems to go. And seeing the whole Class D amplifier revolution happen over the last decade has been really impressive. There's no other word for it, with brands like Hypex and Purify really making a splash on the modern market, and then new technologies like GANFET. It's all very impressive. How can it not be? Also very interesting is that at the complete other end of the amplifier spectrum, valves have seen a manufacturing resurgence too, with the likes of Western Electric starting to manufacture their world famous 300B again. And I got to experience these recently, and wow, they are really something. And this makes me happy from a hi-fi diversity point of view. And I firmly believe the future of valve amplifiers rests on the shoulders of modern valve manufacturers such as Svein and others, because I think it's the quality of what they manufacture that either will or will not inspire future audiophiles to buy and listen to valve amplifiers and not Class D, because Class D has so many real world advantages over every other amplifier technology. I mean, we all know what they are. So if someone is going to choose a valve amplifier instead, or another amplifier technology, it's always going to be because of its sound quality. When I was offered the opportunity to do some listening and testing of different modern produced valves or tubes, I was really up for it because I wanted to know, what are modern tubes like? How good have they become? What is the differences between them? And are they worth the higher price tags that can come along with them? And I have had 3 sets of modern produced KT88 power tubes here that I have been testing. I have the fairly new Svein Horizon tubes that you can buy from Amazon, which really surprised me when I saw that. But again, it makes me happy from a hi-fi diversity point of view, as easy access is great. And the Horizon cost £147 for a matched pair here in the UK. So for an average integrated amplifier, you're likely to need 2 pairs. So the cost of just under £300 or $319 for you guys in the US. On the website, Svein don't tell you much about them, but they do mention the Horizon featuring a HPC X coating with a higher quality bass, and that's BASE, not bass, BASS. Another set I have here are the new top of the Svein range Summit KT88 tubes. And here Svein make much bolder claims about the quality of these tubes and their resulting better sound quality from improved manufacturing, with again a HPC coating that is said to improve cathode electron emission efficiency, with there being a stringent selection process where only the top 2 to 3% are selected as good enough for the Summit series. And I do really like how the Summit tubes look and how they glow. Not that that's massively important, although maybe it is. And they will set you back $559 or £655-ish for a matched quad set. And I was interested to check if the Summit are obviously any different to the Horizon, or could they be just a cherry pick, best of the bunch Horizon tubes? And maybe it's hard for you to tell from the video, but I could easily see there is a physical difference between them. So clearly the Summit is a differently manufactured tube to the Horizon to some degree at least. The third set of KT88 I have here are the Ray Tubes Reserve, and these are the most expensive at £1,599 or $1,127 for a matched quad set. but they are available through some dealers, so you might be able to get a demo of them before buying, and that is always a great idea. Asking RayTubes what makes them worth the premium, they told me the internal structure and materials are specified for the best linearity, microphonics control, and long-term stability. And they told me that is a different design emphasis to other tubes, even ones that look similar. And RayTubes employ a stringent cherry picking process too for the matching of sets. So it's a best of the bunch and a best of the best consistency that you are paying a premium for with these. I also wanted to test different signal tubes, and I have 3 different sets here that are 12AT7 and 12AX7, or the equivalents too. One set is TAD premium branded, which is the Tube Amp Doctor retailer's own brand tubes. And I don't know anything about these except they cost around €70 for a matched pair. Another set I have here cost a little more but are pretty similarly priced, and they are the Svein Art series. And what I found most interesting is the very obvious construction difference compared to the TAD branded tubes. For starters, the Svein have gold-plated pins, the TAD do not, and that is obvious. But looking inside at the actual construction, they are very different. And I assume this is the difference between an actual 12AT7 or 12AX7 and an ECC81 or 7025 tube that are equivalent, which gets very confusing. And that is because there are different tubes that can be used to do the same job. But would they sound the same? Or would they be different? Would they be better or would they be worse? And this turned out to be very important, hence me stressing this to you now. The last set of signal tubes are again RayTubes 12AT7 and 12AX7, and these cost about double, £299 for a matched pair. These have gold pins too and go through a very stringent selection process where only the top 5% are selected to be good enough, but again, the premium price comes along with that for the same reasons. Just like we're For doing my listening testing, I set up a fairly simple but still very high quality hi-fi system, and I was using the Gallion TS34 tube integrated amplifier that sat on the rack behind me. I've just reviewed that amplifier, and it was driving the Audio Solutions Figaro M2 speakers that are also sat behind me. And I intended to keep all my testing as simple as possible, and I wanted to start with the power tubes because I thought that would probably be the most interesting. And I wanted to start with the most affordable, the Horizon, and work up to the most expensive, the RayTubes, just to see what difference there might be, what change might happen. But while I was running the tubes in, which is a long process, I run them in for at least 100 hours per set, and that's taken me a couple of weeks. What I noticed was the sound seemed to change depending on what signal tubes was in the amplifier and what power tubes were in the amplifier. It changed it changed more than I was expecting to. So that made me realise I actually had to start my comparisons with the signal tubes. And I was really glad to have 3 sets here because I learnt quite a lot. And it makes sense because a power tube can only amplify the signal that it gets. So I started by listening to the TAD signal tubes with the Svein Horizon KT88. And then I compared to the Svein Art series, and this was such a telling comparison for me. The TAD tubes made the Gallion amplifier sound lively, energetic and fast, which was all good. And the treble was definitely more sparkly and stand out. But I also found them to sound a bit too intense, or maybe it was just a little bit too tense for me in the upper mid-range and vocal region in general, with there being a little bit of sibilance emphasis playing through the Figaro speakers. And these are sensitive speakers to this. My ears are really sensitive to it too. And interestingly, swapping the TAD for the Svein Art, now the treble was delivered a little softer and definitely a little less crisp, which I preferred, but some might not. But I definitely preferred how the intensity or the tension in the music was pulled back a little bit for a more relaxed presentation in general. I definitely preferred that for sure. I also noticed a touch more mid-range body and more fullness to the sound overall, and I found that made music sound richer and more pleasing to me. And over the course of longer listening, I found myself much preferring the Svein Art Series tubes and their pairing with the Horizon KT88 as a very good all-rounder setup. And by that, I mean, of course, you can still nitpick the sound, and maybe there was nothing that was stand out as exceptional. But overall, I was very happy listening to this setup. So my takeaway from this initial testing was definitely don't overlook the importance of signal tubes and how they seem to affect what you hear from different power tubes as well. And maybe the relationship of how you put those two together or four together, whatever it is, that just relationship of signal to power is really important, much more important than I would ever have imagined. I would have assumed good and good equals great. It's not. Good and good can equal great, but maybe not to your taste. That is where I think it boils down to. But looking at this Svein Art signal tubes with the Horizon KT8 with a total cost of about £450, that's a chunk of money, but this was a really surprisingly good. The Horizon massively exceeded my expectations actually for the general good quality of sound. So what that did was set a much higher starting bar than I expected for the other tubes to try and better for a lot more money. So keeping the art signal tubes in the amplifier, because they'd proved to me how good they are, I changed to the new Svein Summit, and I was really excited to listen to these. And they did not disappoint me, but they were not exactly what I was expecting. I would classify them as having quite a modern sound, but with some character. And what do I mean by that? I mean they sound clean, fast and lively, and very linear up into their higher frequencies. So they don't smear the music's clarity or obviously roll off the high frequencies in a very stereotypical Valve way. So I found them very good with modern and electronic music. But the character I mentioned meant I could throw on some very old jazz recordings, and the instruments in this music came through with so much old world charm. So there was still the character to the music that is the reason for choosing a Valve amplifier in the first place. I found the vocals from the Summit to sound particularly nice. Again, because of the mixture of that modern clean sound, but with an authentic, realistic character of a person singing into a microphone. So giving you a bit more than just speakers playing music in a room. The bass from the Summit was ultra controlled, but without sounding dry, which is something Class D amplifiers don't often get right. Maybe there was a touch more mid-bass presence than deep bass power, but that was hard for me to tell if it's the tubes or just the Galleon amplifier itself. I think it's likely a bit of both. The treble was noticeably more clear and stand out compared to the Horizon, without there being an obvious amount more sibilance in the music, which is of course great. And I found the overall music to sound cleaner, so I could turn the volume up more without the music becoming either mushy or too tense. So technically everything was just that bit better with the Summits compared to the Horizon, justifying their double price difference. But at the same time, I found that the Summits pushed the system, or really I suppose the amplifier, to be a little bit too neutral for me. And that's how that then balanced with the speakers, I didn't enjoy maybe quite as much as the Horizon, that seemed to push the system, or the amplifier I suppose, to be a little bit warmer sounding. So even though they wasn't as good, the slightly warmer balance, did I prefer it outright to the Summits? I can't say that, no, but I definitely prefer a slightly warmer balance of amplifier with these speakers. And that's what's really interesting about, playing around with different valves and putting, different combinations together. It did make me think that I really like the Summit 2s, but I really would have liked to have tried them in the bigger brother amplifier, the Galleon 120 SC, with a different speaker, maybe something like the Revival Audio Atalante 7 Evos that I had here recently, because the Summits are a really standout high quality tube, but maybe just not quite balanced exactly right for me with this amplifier, with these speakers at this time, but I'm interested to try them more in the future. And lastly, I changed out all the tubes for the full set of Ray tubes, so signal and power together. And I've already spoken about these quite a lot in my Galleon TS34 amplifier review if you would like to know more. Now I have had the chance to compare them to the Svein Summit, they do offer something different. They sound more tonally dense and richer and more full-bodied overall, but definitely in the bass, seeming like they get a little bit more out of the speakers, or maybe they're just giving the amplifier a little more drive capability, again for the bass, which is very interesting. The treble also stands out to be different because they do not sound rolled off, so the treble sparkliness was all still there. But the vocals sound like the treble has been rolled off because the vocals sound warmer and fuller in tone. So you're getting almost the best of both situations here, and how can you not like that? I did find the Summit to sound a little cleaner overall. They have more of a what you might call like a squeaky clean sound. There is maybe a touch more grit to the sound of the Ray tubes. Maybe, and I'm not sure if grit is the right word to describe what I was hearing. The fact that there was more tonal harmonics to the music, maybe there was just more to listen through. And with a little less of that with the Summit, more of a modern sound, it makes you perceive them as being the cleaner sounding of the two. It is cleaner, always better. And that's where it's interesting, because it's always situational and always personal preference. Because again, over longer listening, I did find the Ray tubes just do something that just I enjoy more. And that's not because they are the most expensive. It's just because at least with this system and these speakers, and generally the sound I like a full-bodied, that extra full-bodiedness, that extra kind of warmth, full-bodiedness and like bass power that they was getting out of the amplifier with the speakers. I just preferred, that was more of my taste, more my character, more of what I enjoy in music. But of course, it does come with that big premium price tag. So what are my takeaways and conclusion from this testing? Well, it's clear to me that the future of valve amplifiers seems very well sorted. These are all very good options, and I'm wondering when we might start to see manufacturers developing products with these high quality valves already in them. I have noticed that Galleon Audio are selling Ray tubes now as upgrades to their products, so maybe it's starting. And the future of valve amplifiers, of course, it's not just for people that are buying them new today, it's for everybody, the tens of thousands of people that own them now and will need tubes and want tubes and maybe want better tubes in their future. And that is why I was really interested to do this testing, because I think there would be a lot of people, or at least the assumption, even for someone like me, is that we have to buy new old stock NOS tubes, from the 1960s to get high quality. And I really don't think that's the case anymore based on my experience anyway. But look, I understand and appreciate the luster of buying something that was made special in the 1960s, like the romance of that, and that can still be fun, and I'm sure, there'll be people that still continue to do it. But what I don't like about the whole NOS valve experience is that you maybe look on eBay, you see all different types on there, and you have no way of knowing at all what they're going to sound like. You can maybe find someone's post on a forum, but there's no consistency in that. Modern produced tubes are going to go out to multiple reviewers, and you can look for the consistency in what they say. And it's the consistency in the manufacturing that is important, and the cherry picking of the best of the bunch that stood out to me about the Summit tubes and about the Ray tubes, which means, there's consistency. You know what you're getting, you know what you're spending your money on, and you can even go and demo them maybe in certain situations. And that is really important, because we are talking about big money here. We're talking about big decisions. So thanks for watching. Hope it's been helpful.